So just like with my review of Kong Skull Island, is it a crime to say that I've never seen a Godzilla movie before this one? If so, uh, sorry, I just never have. But hopefully, I can now see more. But before then, this was the one. I don't know what else to tell you. Godzilla 2014 is directed by Gareth Edwards with a screenplay by Max Borenstein and story by David Callaham. The film has a star-studded cast including Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Ken Watanabe, Elizabeth Olsen, Juliette Binoche, Sally Hawkins, David Strathairn, and Bryan Cranston. According to IMDb's plot synopsis, the world is beset by the appearance of monstrous creatures, but one of them may be the only one who could save humanity. As you all know, this is technically the first film in the MonsterVerse. I remember seeing this trailer in theaters at the time. And it's so weird to me because, again, not having seen Godzilla, I know of Godzilla at the time, but even still, I've never seen a Godzilla movie. So watching this trailer in the theater was crazy. And I remember people were kind of getting excited about it because there hasn't been a Godzilla film since 1998's Roland Emmerich film. And so many people despise that movie. As much as people probably have fun with it, everyone knows that, like, as a Godzilla movie itself, nobody likes it. I bet you even the hardcore Godzilla fans would tell you that. Now, with Gareth Edwards in the directing chair, Godzilla Returns. When I saw the film back in 2014, I really enjoyed it for what it was. Being my first, like, kind of creature feature, if I remember correctly, seeing in theaters. And I still do. I still actually think that this is a pretty decent monster film. A good Godzilla movie, if you will. But before discussing, like, my issues with the movie, here are some of the positives that I had. The performances are fine for the most part, but the ones that do stand out the most are both Bryan Cranston and Ken Watanabe. Cranston is terrific as Joe Brody Ford's, Aaron Taylor-Johnson's character, scientist father. Cranston plays Joe as a caring and devoted husband, but he knows when to be distraught and paranoid when he's trying to discover something. Bryan Cranston, it surprises me that he is not in movies that often, because when he's in a movie like this, and what his character is, and how he portrays it, there's just something about it that you just gravitate towards, and he is so amazing in this movie, especially when Ford goes to visit him in Japan, now as an adult, because in the beginning of the movie, it's them living in Japan. So years later, Ford goes to meet him in Japan to help him out with some stuff. And there's one interrogation scene with him that just shows how much of a fantastic actor Bryan Cranston is, and how much that he is so terrific in this movie that it just, the negative part about it bugs me, but overall, his performance is amazing, and I love him so much in this film, and I wish there could have been more. I still enjoyed him in this movie. As for Ken Watanabe, who plays Dr. Urisho Shirazawa, he's really good. He gives off the vibes of a curious and determined scientist. Ken Watanabe is an actor I have huge amounts of respect for, and no matter what role he's in, he always gives off the vibe of he's just a terrific actor. He just always seems to know what he's playing, what he's doing, and here, I think he's terrific. Again, do I think he is downplayed in this movie? Yes, but I really do enjoy his performance in the movie because it kind of adds to the curiosity and the determination factor of wanting to know more about Godzilla or uncovering stuff about these titans. Everyone else in the movie are decent. The direction is spectacular. Director Gareth Edwards captures the tension and scale of Godzilla. The way Edwards builds the Titans makes it scary before the Titans even appear. He is crazy on how a movie can build your suspense for these Titans before they even set foot. It's crazy to think that a movie could even achieve that. And I think Gareth Edwards just knows when to build that tension. And I think it has to do with really Bryan Cranston, but he just knows when to amp up the tension of when the creatures will appear. And when they do, it is terrifying. And the way he manages to capture the scale of these monsters is insane on how much he wanted you to feel terrified that these monsters were not only big, but they could devastate everything in sight. And I think he did an amazing job with that. The music is incredible. Composer Alessandro Desplat creates a thrilling and ominous score that helps build the tension throughout the film. Without this score, it would have decreased the quality of the movie significantly. But I think because of Alexander Desplat's score, it helps elevate the tension and the stakes of what these monsters, these creatures would be. The visuals are stunning. The Titans are visually dazzling, especially Godzilla. From the designs to the size, they are remarkable to look at. It is incredible to see a film that was made 10 years ago still look as incredible as it did all those years ago. It's incredible to me because you would think that it just wouldn't come off right. It would not be as intriguing as it would be with regards to how these creatures would look. They look incredible. And Godzilla, I think most fans would agree, it looks much better here than he did in the 98 film. And the way the scales are, like how big these creatures are, I think they got that down right. The production is top notch. The amount of work that went into the sets are well done throughout. I especially love the deforest city of Japan to the destroyed parts of San Francisco. They're amazing. The amount of work that went into making, like, say, like the deforest part of Japan where Ford and his family live looks incredibly detailed and strikingly gorgeous. Even the destroyed parts of San Francisco look amazing. It just is incredible to see how much passion went into making sure that the sceneries all look fantastic. The cinematography is gorgeous. Cinematographer Seamus McGovern really captures the scale and scope of these Titans. I couldn't imagine this film looking generic than how it is. And I'm glad that with a cinematographer like this, they really pulled off what Gareth Edwards and co. were setting out to do, and they did it fantastically. It treats the source material with respect. This film could have gone down the route of Emmerich's film, where it could have been dumbed down for Americans, because let's face it, I think most fans would agree it dumbed down Godzilla to a T. Thankfully, it treats the film with urgency and homage to Godzilla's roots, because if a lot of people don't know, as much as we all know the goofy Godzilla, Godzilla didn't start out that way. Godzilla was a terrifying menace, and more recently, with something like Godzilla -1, it shows that Godzilla's roots in being a terrifying creature is still there, even to this day. Been there since the original Godzilla, it was there here, and it still continues in something like Godzilla -1, which is incredible to me on how much, even with this movie being the second attempt for Americans, I'm glad that they got it down right. With much respect to this movie, there are some issues that I found. So here are now some of the negatives I found. The amount of screen time that Godzilla has is lacking. Though the point of the film is to build the tension, I do think that Godzilla's appearance is very minimal. You might sometimes forget that Godzilla is even in this until he shows up, because yeah, it is mostly dealing with a lot of build-up for these Titans and for these creatures, and I understand that. And I understand that they want to make you kind of care for human characters, but we'll get to that in a bit. But this is supposed to be a Godzilla movie, and with a Godzilla movie, you expect Godzilla to be there throughout the movie, but he's hardly in the movie. And when he does show up, they kind of cut away to it, which I do think that kind of lends to the idea of wanting to follow with human characters. But there should have been more scenes with Godzilla, or more scenes of him doing something rather than just a few seconds, because I feel like it negates it. By the end of the movie, they start to kind of introduce it more, but by the time they do that, it becomes too late. The characters are dull. Aside from Cranston and Watanabe's character, most of the characters are boring. And the boring one, unfortunately, I have to say, is Aaron Taylor Johnson's character, Ford, who is just a generic soldier. And you shouldn't have that, because he is supposed to be your main character. And yet, he is the one character that you're just like, could have not been anybody else to have taken this, because I feel like by doing that, you've now minimalized both Cranston and Watanabe. And again, this is not trying to downplay Aaron Taylor Johnson as an actor. I think he's a fantastic actor. I think he has wide range. I think he can play a role. But here, I just think that either they negate him to just being kind of the straight man forward, to just being like, he's just your main character. That's it. There's nothing interesting about him. He's just your main character. And another problem I have with this movie is the switching of characters, the way in which that was. So, spoiler alert, but then again, this movie's been 10 years old, so. The film focuses on Job in the beginning of the movie, and everyone would say it was awesome to have Bryan Cranston get more attention outside of Breaking Bad, and I was happy that he would seem like he would be the main character. And he was there for a bit for the first act. But once he dies, it switches to his son, Ford. And I think to this day, that was the biggest mistake you could have possibly have done. Again, I'm not trying to be an asshole to Aaron Taylor Johnson and who he is, but people cared so much that Bryan Cranston was in this and how he was, marketed for all of a sudden for him to just die. It really feels like they shot themselves in the foot, because I don't think there's any other character that is as interesting as Bryan Cranston. Or if they were going to do that, maybe give it to Ken Watanabe, because he's underutilized in this movie. Yeah, I think this was just a huge mistake that I think even Bryan Cranston has stated that was a mistake. So, surprisingly, Godzilla 2014 is an enjoyable and was a decent start to the MonsterVerse. Like, a decent start to kick things off. The film boasts an excellent score, great direction, decent performances, beautiful cinematography, amazing production, stellar visuals, and respecting of the source material. Though the issues stand out, this film roars throughout. I'm happy at the very least that, although there are some shortcomings, at the very least, those positives outweigh the negatives. So yeah, I'm going to give Godzilla 2014 a 7 out of 10. I think it is a good film, and although this is the second film I'm covering, otherwise a decent start. I will now have my review for Godzilla King of the Monsters, so yeah, look forward to those reviews and other movie TV show reviews coming soon.